Hello, welcome to Barbecue Elevated. Today I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to do some ribs today, some spare ribs I got right here. Got a rack of back ribs right here. Of course, these are pork ribs. But just going to do this from just a GoPro, just kind of show you guys my point of view of what I do and what things look like. So just start here with this rack of spare ribs. Just going to go through and cut this little extra piece off. It's a little like flap. I just always cut it off. I just hate having it just kind of like hang out there. It blocks part of the meat here, and I just feel like it always just dries out if you just leave it. So it's just kind of better just to get rid of it. Probably going to end up having to cut this breastbone out right here. It's kind of interesting. The last few racks of ribs that I've gotten, there wasn't a breastplate, but this one there just is. But anyways, I'm going to just start by peeling off the membrane off of this here rack of spare ribs. Sometimes the membranes come off super simple, super easy. Sometimes they're kind of tough, just the way it is. Can't really say why sometimes they're easy and sometimes they're not, just the way it goes. So that one came off pretty easily. You know what? That's normally what I do is I just use a butter knife, just kind of peel up one end of it and then grab it and pull them. I'm actually kind of surprised that this rack has the breastbone. The last few times I've bought them, there hasn't even been one in there. Go ahead and peel it off on these, go ahead and peel it off on the back ribs as well next. So personally, I like back ribs more. You know, back ribs are from the loin area. They're like closer to the actual spine of the pig, whereas so they're like up by the loins. Like if you're somebody who likes pork chops, pork loin, like back ribs are definitely what you would like. Pork chops I love. Pork loin I love. So definitely like the leaner side of the ribs, which is what the back ribs are. Then you got the spare ribs, which are down below. So like if you think about like this is like top of the pig, spine's up here, and then right here where it's cut right here, this is where like the spare ribs would be like. So it'd be like spare ribs down below, back ribs on top. And that's how they work. And so what they do is they cut the spare ribs off of the back ribs. The bottom of the spare ribs goes into the pork belly, which is what bacon is made out of. Like everybody loves bacon, I feel like, so definitely not a bad thing there. But there's definitely just a lot to it when it comes to just knowing ribs and kind of knowing where they come from. Helps you to know what kind of ribs you want. So spare ribs, because they connect into the pork belly, which is where the bacon comes from. There's a lot more fat on them, so they're definitely fattier. And if you like the fattier kind of meats, then spare ribs are definitely the way to go. If you do not, get the back ribs. And then typically the back ribs cost a little bit more too, just because the back ribs come from the loin. And butchers will actually sometimes even leave a little bit more meat on the actual back ribs because they can sell more per pound than what they can pork chops or pork loin. Whereas with the spare ribs, a lot of times, because what they're doing, it's like this backside here, right here, this is where like the actual pork belly comes into. So like they actually like shave it off. And sometimes what you'll see is like little shiners on the ribs where like they cut too much off and you can actually see the rib bones coming through. So that's something you always want to watch for, is you don't want to have any like shiners, because it means they just cut too much meat off. Because frankly, they'll try to get as much meat on the pork belly as they can, just because the pork belly is what they can sell more per pound for. Anyways, I need to go grab a little bit bigger knife to cut this breastplate out. Alright, back with the bigger knife. Just gonna go ahead and work on getting this breastbone cut out. I just don't like to have it in here. I just feel like it kind of gets in the way, and it doesn't, just kind of slows down the whole cooking process, and just isn't great in my experience when I leave it in. I guess if you really wanted to, you could just leave it. It doesn't really matter a whole lot, but just got to kind of cut through all the cartilage. Like I say, a lot of times butchers will just cut this out for you. You don't even have to worry about it, but for whatever reason, this particular one just still had it. Not a huge deal. Just cut it right out. And there we go. Now it's out. And now that is all good. The other thing that I like to do with spare ribs, and in general they don't take a whole lot of, just drop the breastplate. So one thing I like to do with spare ribs is just kind of like trim them up a little bit, just make them so they're nice and like square and cylindrical. just symmetrical, sorry. But then also, like, there's like this little end bone right here that's just always kind of there, and I always typically will cut that bone out, just because in my experience it just causes problems when you go to wrap and you just end up having like holes in the foil, which you don't want. So usually I'll just kind of cut this end bone off here. Again, just it's like this little bone right here, and it just kind of like protrudes out, and there's nothing good there. And when you go to wrap, you just can't have any holes in your foil. It doesn't work that well if you do. So anyways, it's time we got these all trimmed up and cut. Everything's looking really good. What I'm going to do now is actually just go inside and wash my hand real quick, and then I'll start putting the rub on. I had to use both hands for this one today just to get the membrane off. I didn't wear gloves today, which I normally do. Normally I'll put gloves on, get the membrane off, and then take the gloves off, and then continue trimming and getting them ready so that way I have a clean hand to touch my rubs with. But didn't do that today. Not a big deal. Just got to wash your hand in between so you don't contaminate the containers for your rubs. Alright, so I'm out here just going to go ahead and check on these ribs real quick, see how they're coming along. Been in here for a little bit over an hour. Just going to go ahead and spritz them real quick just to keep them from drying out. So there's the back ribs up front. There's the spare ribs in the back. So they're getting a nice color into them already. If you notice here, I always like to put like the fatter side towards the firebox. That way helps to really keep the heat from hitting the thinner sides too much. So that way we don't overcook the thinner side of the ribs faster than the fatter side. But got them all sprayed off. They're looking really nice. Already getting some color to them. A little bit of a browning, reddish color to them. So happy with that. Gonna go ahead and close this lid and just keep them going. Okay, now it's time to just go ahead and sauce the ribs and get them ready. They've been in here for about 3 hours now. So that's what they're looking like. Looking really good. Really happy with them. So when I sauce, what I always do is just hit them really quickly with some cider vinegar. Then I take my sauce. You can just rate any sauce that you want. So I use this Big Daddy Hill sauce called Carolina Tang. I use it because it has no sugar. Just because I feel like with sugar, it ends up burning when it's on a grill or on a smoker. So if you can get sauce without sugar or just low sugar or no corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, like it just seems like it doesn't burn. It just turns into a glaze instead, which is what I'm going for. But if you've never had a problem with that, like just use whatever sauce you want. There's no right or wrong. But I always like to use sauce and then dilute it with cider vinegar just so that it's more runny. I don't like it to be super thick, and just get it on there and then spread it out. Just be careful that you don't knock all the rub off, which so far that is not happening, so happy with that. But yeah, just get the sauce on there. Once it's spread on there, I just hit it again with some cider vinegar real quick, and then close the lid, let it sit for 10 minutes, and then what I'll do is I'll flip them over, and then do the bottom side the exact same way. Let it sit for 10 minutes so that it can set up and turn into a glaze. Then once that's done, pull them out and start wrapping them. Alright, well it's time to go ahead and get the ribs wrapped. So just kind of show you guys what I do when I do that. So got the foil right here. What I typically like to do is just, go through, hit the foil with some cider vinegar real quick. Wind's trying to take it away. That way it just stays, try to get as much moisture as we can on the ribs. That's what the cider vinegar is going to do for us. Just get a little bit of sauce and just put it right there in the middle like that. Then take the barbecue gloves. We'll walk over here. I think I'll grab the spare ribs first. So there they are back in there. Go ahead and pull them out. Just grab the gloves. This meat is usually pretty hot, so it's always good to have something to keep your hands from getting burned. I just don't like using tongs because I feel like tongs, like, one, it leaves a mark, but then two, it can kind of like knock the rub off. So if you have gloves, I can be a little bit more gentle, and I just don't ever really knock off the rub with these. So something I'll do is I'll kind of go through and just pick off these little things that are sticking out, just because they tend to poke through the foil. One thing we don't want to have happen is don't want the foil to get a hole in it. Just need to keep it nice and tight, keep all the moisture locked in. So then just go ahead and hit this again with cider vinegar. get some more sauce and just squirt it on the top a little bit. Do it one more time. Get these two things out of the way. Hey, there's Lucy. And then just wrap up the ribs. So I like to just fold it on the side and then just kind of tuck it underneath. Get this one, fold it on its side, wrap it underneath. Again, just trying really hard not to puncture the foil. Wrap it that way. And if you notice, I put the rib so it was the meat side down, bone side was up, so the meat side was down on the foil. And then what I'll do is I'll put them back in the cooker just like this with the meat side down, put it in there until they're finished. The way that I know that they're finished is when I just go to pick them up and they just feel nice and soft and they just kind of fold around my arm. It's going to take about 2 to 2.5 hours from this point before they're done. Sometimes the back ribs take a little bit longer. I don't know why, it's just kind of the way it is. I think it's because they're a little bit thicker. They're not quite, they're like not as much fat in them. So I just feel like with the back ribs, with it having a little bit more meat, a little bit more density to them, that might be the reason why they take longer, because they don't weigh as much. And they're quite a bit smaller, so you'd think they would go faster, but they just don't. Go ahead and get the second rack out. So again, these are the back ribs. Just do these the exact same way. Just pull them out. A lot of times I do this pretty quickly, so I don't even really worry about closing the Franklin when I'm doing it. Toss those out of the way. Just hit these real quick. Knock off the stuff that's going to put a hole in the foil. A little bit more sauce. One more time. Then we'll go ahead and wrap these. Again, get it tight, but not like so tight that you're going to put a hole in the foil. So you definitely don't want to have a whole lot of air pockets. Just want it to be nice and tight and secure in here. Okay, everything is wrapped up nice and tight. Go ahead and put it back in here. Close the Franklin and just kind of keep that temp right around the 275 to 285 degree mark. If I was using a pellet, probably be around like 230 the entire time. If I feel like I needed to with the pellet, maybe bump up to like 240 towards the end, but that's about it. Anyways, there we go. Now we're just going to leave them in there. So this right here is the sauce that I used today. It's just the Tangy Carolina. It's sugar-free. It's from Big Daddy Hills. I like it because there's no high fructose corn syrup. There's no MSGs, just like made out of like natural ingredients. Just really good. All their sauces are just really great. Veteran owned, which is cool, but Big Daddy Hills just does really good stuff. And normally I use my own sauce for ribs, but today I just found out too late that I didn't have the ingredients that I needed to be able to make my own sauce. So just went ahead with this one. Again, it's sugar-free, which is going to help it so it doesn't burn. It just turns into a glaze instead. All right, it's time to go ahead and check the ribs. See how they're coming along. It's been about 5 hours now since they've been in here. Feeling like, in total, 5 hours. Not 5 hours since I wrapped. Feeling like that the spare ribs are probably going to be done, but maybe not the back, but we'll see. So just, all I do is just kind of pick them up. Just see how they feel. So see how this one, like there's like no bending at all. Those just aren't quite done yet. Pick up the spare ribs. And if you see there how they're just kind of like bending under their weight. Hopefully you can kind of see that really well, but like they're not holding themselves up. They're just kind of falling over. That means they're done. Go ahead and pull those out. Let them rest. Keep the back ribs in here. In my experience, back ribs takes about 30 minutes longer than spare ribs do. So just go ahead and leave those in there and then see how long it takes, I guess. I don't know, but we'll find out, I guess, soon. I'll just come back and check them in about 30 minutes. And all right, here's the ribs. Here's the spare ribs here, the back ribs there. They seem to be like super soft and tender. These ones, like, I mean, when I was getting them out of the foil, they just literally broke right apart. Like, that's pretty awesome. These actually smell really good too. I think it's the sauce. I've never smelled My ribs have never quite smelled like this before, but I think this is the sauce that's making them smell this way. I'm gonna actually just go ahead and just start kind of like slicing these a bit. So I always kind of turn them over just so I can see the rib bones better when I'm cutting through them. Just what I do. But these are so freaking soft and good. Excited. So I'm going to go ahead and just try this piece here, see what it tastes like. So hopefully you can see that. So nice little back rib. Definitely nice and soft, not dried out, just really good and tender. Really like that a lot. Good flavor from the sauce too, so I'll probably use that sauce again. I'm pretty impressed with that. It's not burned or anything like that, and again, like it's not like dried out. So which is, you know, kind of like that fine line that you have to walk with ribs, of getting them to where they are soft and tender, like pull apart ribs, but also not to the point where they are just like dried out, which you can do with ribs if you cook them too long. You kind of have like this sweet spot with ribs of like, it's like this like 15-minute to 30-minute window where they're just like done and they're perfect. If it's too soon, they're just a little too, you know, undercooked and they're not quite as tender. And if it's too long, then they're just dried out. In this case, these ones are just right on. So really happy with those. Gonna go ahead and finish up slicing up the spare ribs. Again, I always just flip them over. That way you can see the rib bones nice and easy. Just start cutting through them. But yeah, super impressed with these, happy with these. Definitely will probably try that sauce again. Can taste the salt on the bottom of the rib too from when I put that on in the, earlier on. So and here's our spare rib. So a nice little smoke ring all around it. Yeah, really impressed with these. Super happy with this. Like, just awesome. Just really, really good. Look how bendy and pliable that is. But yeah, exactly what I was going for.